What's up, guys? Welcome back to Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho. Thank you so much for watching. And guys, today we are talking about Gregory Rousseau out of Miami, the dude who had a ridiculous 2019 season, opted out of 2020, understandably, right? Like, if you feel like you're going to be a first round pick, why not just cut out that extra year of college and move right along? Don't blame him a bit, but I have some takes. All right, so bear with me on this one, guys. I don't know. I feel like the public has cooled off a little bit on Rousseau. I haven't heard like the top 10 hype or top 15 hype even as much. We'll get to it. All right, let's get into his stats real quick so we can go over that. 6'7", 253 pounds, 6'7". This dude is huge. I almost think it can be a disadvantage. Again, we'll get to that. 15 and a half sacks in his career. I believe 12 and a half of them came in that 2019 season. 2 forced fumbles, 59 tackles, and he is a sophomore, so he's young. Raw prospect in general. You talk about sophomores coming out of college, very rarely are they just like, ready to go from day one type of guys. Very, very rare. It happens, but rare. Let's get into the skill chart here for you. And here we are with the skill chart. Let's start with the burst and first step. So I mentioned his 6'7" size. Like, this dude is a lumbering mammoth of a man. And I say lumbering, that's not always like the phrase that you want to hear when you're talking about an edge rusher, defensive end type of guy, but that's what he is. And I think it's kind of a negative for him when you talk about his burst and first step. Like, he doesn't get off the line fast enough, consistently enough for my liking. At a 4.2, it's close to an average grade, but it is a negative grade, and it's really just negative because it's like, maybe it's just a consistency thing. You saw it a handful of times where it's like, oh, that was a good rep, and then you see like 3 more and it's like, well, that wasn't a great, it wasn't bad, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like, this awesome, like, I'd only heard good things about this dude for a year and a half now, and finally getting to watch him, and it was underwhelming a little bit. So I'm gonna try not to hold that against him, but I'm gonna be honest, it definitely seeped into my grade a little bit here. Flexibility and bend, this is more like, does he do a good job of turning that corner? That's what you care about the most when you talk about edge rushers. He's a little stiff, first of all, so that is definitely a negative for him when you can talk about flexibility, but he does a good enough job of turning that corner and pressuring the quarterback. I will say, not really where he gets the majority of his production. Like, a lot of his production comes on stunts or against a lineman that just is not physically in the same realm as him, and it's just not even really close. But a lot of stunts, a lot of cute defensive plays that kind of get wide open lanes for him. He's able to bring quarterbacks down. So I think that's where a lot of his production comes. Not enough from around the edge and that style, like, not enough. It's definitely there, but it wasn't enough for me. Athleticism, 5.6, good grade, fine grade. At 5.6, you'd like this to be a little bit higher when you're talking about like an elite physical athlete, an elite edge rusher type of guy. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think that's what we're talking about right now. Maybe he can be that. Like, he's much more of the Jadeveon Clowney defensive end than he is like the Von Miller, J.J. Watt, and Bosa brothers defensive edge rusher, offensive linebacker type of guy. Like, he is that's more of what he is. So that's kind of like my comp. That's not my comp. I wouldn't comp him to Jadeveon Clowney, but like, just as far as like style, Jadeveon Clowney is more of a guy who's just a big dude, plays the run really well, can set the edge, all of those things. Not like consistently bring pressure on the edge. He can do it, he does it, but it's not like Jadeveon Clowney's not a 10 sack, 12 sack a season type of guy in the NFL. I don't think Gregory Rousseau will be that either. I just don't see that for him. Play strength, 7.9. I mean, dude, he's a big, strong, physical dude. He manhandled a lot of these guys in college, especially some of the lower level guys that he played in the ACC in 2019, especially. Like, yeah, it wasn't, he crushed some people physically, and he's a strong physical guy. Hand usage at a 3.5. I had an issue with this because, like, he's so big and he is strong. His play strength is good, but like, I I like was shocked to see the lack of just pop. Like, and maybe the pop is the wrong pop. Yeah, like that's the right thing to use, right? Like I want to see him crushing people. You should see sledgehammers. He should have sledgehammers for arms. And he's a long, like lengthy dude. Like that's what he is. But like, I mean, you should be just throwing people around. You should be punching these guys, and they should be moving. I should be able to physically see him like moving people around. His counters, like they're fine, but they're not really there. He only has a handful of pass rushing moves. He's raw. He's very raw at the position in general, and I think that can be worked on. Hand usage isn't something that like kills me, especially when you talk about a guy who definitely has like some physical traits that you're gonna love. Like a team's gonna fall in love with this guy. Like at the end of the day, like I don't have him as a first round guy, but some team is going to look at some of the negatives I'm going to continue to talk about here, and say, okay, we can work with that, and just look at a guy that they like 6'7", has the frame of a guy that they think fits the position they want him to play. So like it's gonna happen, guaranteed. He certainly probably will go in the first round just because of that alone. But for me, hand usage isn't there. Let's move on. Leverage at 6.6. Leverage is a good grade, mostly because like he is long, he has length, and he's able to use that to his advantage a whole lot, and peel away from blockers and really just move people around the way he needs to. It's fine. He's good. Tackling at a 6, positive grade. I don't need to really dive into that. It's a good grade. Nothing wrong with that. Read and react at a 6.8, especially on the edge. That's really important. There's a lot that goes into this. Versus the run is a 7, so that's actually elite grade. It's my lowest elite grade that you can have, but still an elite grade. He's very good against the run. Very good at like pinching the gap if he's like out in space and maybe facing like a option play where it's either going to the quarterback outside or it's going to the running back inside, and he can kind of like he can break that space down. He's really good at recognizing a pulling guard and kind of attacking the pulling guard and again eating up as much space as he can for the rest of his defense to come rally to the ball, because I mean that's important. So I think he is great against the run. I have no issues there at all, and I actually think that is one of his better qualities in general. Motor is 6.5, very, very good. Didn't give up on the play, didn't have any issues with that at all from what I saw. Technique at a 2.9. It's an issue. He needs help. This is a project. He's a sophomore, didn't play last year, has limited reps in college just in general. Yeah, it's gonna need work. I don't think he's gonna go to a team that's expecting him to produce a ton year one. I think he has the traits that I think a team could certainly take a shot on him in the first round. I'd be surprised if it was top 20. I would be very, very surprised if it was top 20. And really just even like thinking back of some of the guys that went like from 20 to 25 in last year's class, just off the top of my head, I'd be surprised if like it would be the later 20s is when like I think he really starts to be a question of like, okay, is he going right here? I could be wrong in that, but that's kind of like my assessment of where he's at with technique. It needs work. He doesn't have a lot of pass rushing moves. He's just raw at every single level. Coverage, he's stiff. He's just too stiff in coverage. He's not a linebacker. You call like JJ Watt's technically an outside linebacker, but just plays edge more than anything. Yeah, that's not what he is. He's a defensive end. He needs to have his hand in the dirt because I don't want him in space. I don't like I saw only a handful of snaps really where he played in space, and I just it's not there. I'm good. I'm out. I don't want to see him in coverage at all. Overall, I do want to say, he does have some positional versatility. I think, a team is going to see his measurables and see his upside and think, man, we can do a lot of different things with him, right? Like he played at pretty much every spot on that defensive line. A lot of that is because he like ran a lot of stunts, and the Miami defense in general is kind of interesting. I think it's not technically sound as far as like I think the defense just gets gashed way too much at the college level to be a technically sound defense, but they do run some interesting stuff that's like very fun, and a lot of that is where he got his production. I think the crazy 2019 season with all those sacks and everything, if you go just look at a highlight reel, and I'm sure it's out there on YouTube, and if you go just look at every single sack, which I'm not going to sit here and say I did, but I definitely saw, I'd say 8 or 9 of them of the games that I watched. I probably saw that many sacks of him. I would bet you if you went back and looked at all of his sacks, you would be really unimpressed at like the way he got his sacks. Because there's a difference between running a stunt and having a wide open lane at your quarterback who's, going down versus beating a man off the edge and getting to the quarterback or being more explosive and just, more athletic than the guy across from you. Like, no, they're different things and they shouldn't be graded the same. They go down the stat sheet as the same thing, but like, that's why stats lie and film doesn't, right? So, I mean, it's just worth mentioning that I think his numbers are a little bit overinflated. I'll put it that way. As far as where I think he goes, I mentioned it a handful of times. I'll just say it one more time just to close out this video by saying he's going to go to whichever defensive coordinator slams his fist on the table and says, I can do great things with this player. And I think it should be second round because I do see the upside. I certainly do. I don't know. Like, I always put myself in my pretend team. I don't think he'd be scheme fit in my pretend team, because in my pretend team, I have like a vision of the way I would want to run my defense and run my offense. So like, I don't get excited about this player. I don't. I see a very high bust potential for him. I really do. I think his ceiling is through the roof and his floor is out of the league in a couple years. I really think that's kind of how I look at it for him. We'll see what happens. I'm not out on him. I don't want to be the only guy on YouTube in 3 years saying like, oh, he's total shit, he's never going to be good in the NFL. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I definitely think he has a chance, but I'm just not personally as excited as I thought it was going to be. And I think a lot of this like dour opinion on him does come from like expectation versus reality. Like, if I hadn't heard of this dude, I'd probably be a lot more excited about his potential, because his potential is certainly there. But I had heard of him, and I had heard about him as being like one of the top defensive ends in this class and all these things. And it's like, I haven't watched every defensive end. He's certainly not in the top. I don't think he's going to be really even in my top 3 when it's all said and done. And I don't know exactly how I'm going to have that ranked out, but just from where I'm at right now, I think he's a project guy who could find the right fit and be an interesting player. But all right, guys, that's all I have on Gregory Rousseau. If you are watching this video right now and you are not subscribed, this is the part where I tell you to subscribe. But I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you right now. Jared, if your name's Jared and you're watching this and you're not subscribed and you're not going to subscribe now, that's fucked up, bro. So hit that subscribe button, help a small channel out, help me grow. I think I'm putting out pretty good content. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with that statement. And we're just going to try and get 1% better every day. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.